This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. Station.
Sarah Spain is our in-studio guest, Aurora owner. Do you have a title beyond that with the Aurora?
No, hype lady.
Hype lady. Okay, yeah. That works as well.
Recruiter. I recruited all my listeners to dive in and join too.
Before we get to the book, you grew up in Lake Forest, Illinois, correct? Which I know well with my Chicago background. Now, you're too young, I would think, to remember the movie when it came out, because I think it came out in 1980, to tell you the truth. Are you familiar with, for me, the first thing when I hear Lake Forest, I associate Lake Forest immediately with this particular movie. Do you know what I'm talking about, the movie I'm talking about?
I can't remember the name, but it's the depressing one.
It's I would call it done depressing, but it is depressing. Ordinary People.
Ordinary People. Yeah,
Robert Redford directed.
I never have seen it, which is terrible.
You should see it.
I've been hearing about it. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things before my time, but you hear about it being there.
Now, I haven't watched it in many years, so I don't know how it would hold up. Yeah. And you got to be in the right mood, because it ain't a slapstick comedy, as you said. But it's the cast is impeccable. The story it lays out having to do with relationships and loss and family, I still think it's one of my favorite movies, but it's a tough film. It's not an easy movie by any means. I'm just curious.
I add it to my list. When I was growing up, was always excited that the movie Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Mm-hmm, yes.
The evil villain, preppy girl was from Lake Forest, and I was like, damn. We're not getting good representation here. We weren't getting good representation. I, of course, want to be Sarah Jessica Parker in the movie. But,
yes, right.
Or her wacky friend Helen Hunt. But instead, the evil girl who they crash her country club party is from Lake Forest.
Lake Forest.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the new book called Runs in the Family. It's getting, I assume you got to be pleased. Very good reviews, a very good reaction to it. Tell our audience what this book is all about.
Well, spoiler alert. So if you want to read it without the spoiler, I guess you can avoid what I'll tell you when it's coming. But most people
let us
already
know,
because
people, our audience gets very sensitive on stuff like that.
A lot of people already know it because the story came out on ESPN for an E60 and a written feature I did a couple years ago, but I'll still give you the warning when we're getting to it. So it's the story of Dylan McCullough. He's currently the running backs coach for the Raiders. He grew up in Youngstown, Ohio, was adopted. And when he's 2 years old, his adopted father leaves. So he's now sort of doubly rejected by father figures, the one he never knew and the one who's just left. But his adoptive father is a radio DJ in town. So his whole life, he hears his voice on the air. He's got a lot to say, but just not to him. Doesn't care about being in his life anymore. So grows up with a single mom, Youngstown, Ohio, post-industrial collapse. So not a lot of great jobs, a lot of people struggling, poverty, crime, etc. And so he sort of just keeps his head down and starts playing football and figures that's his way out. Gets told when he's 7 he was adopted, and they never really talk about it again. We don't really have time for you to navel gaze about your identity. We're trying to put food on the table and make sure we've got heat and a phone, which at times they did not have.
His mom tells him.
His mom essentially tells him that, well, she's telling a friend, Pittsburgh, that's where we adopted Dylan. He said, I'm adopted?
Hold on.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. No more questions, right? So eventually she says, if you ever want to talk about it, but he's kind of gotten the message at that point. This isn't what we spend our time on. There's a lot of trouble. How
jolted was he then at that moment?
Pretty jolted, but he also didn't really know what it meant, right? It was kind of an aside of like, you're adopted, but that, and again, he recognized very young that there were a lot of troubles in Youngstown, and they didn't need him bothering them about this. This wasn't the most important thing. So they don't really talk about it for a very long time. He ends up getting really good at football his senior year. He's getting recruited by up-and-comers like Jim Tressel and Bob Stoops, and this guy Sherman Smith, who was also from Youngstown, who had gone on to have NFL success with the Seahawks, was now back with his alma mater at Miami of Ohio, recruits him. They hit it off. He ends up going there, breaks a ton of records. Sherman actually gets hired away to Illinois, shortly thereafter, but he stays there and loves it and breaks a bunch of records, tries to go to the NFL, gets injured, gets into teaching, gets into coaching, has 4 sons, and never knows anything about his birth parents. So he has to tell the doctors all the time, I don't know anything about my birth history. They're pregnant again, don't know anything about. And then in his early 40s, as he's made his way up the coaching ranks from Miami to Indiana to USC, he's doing coaching internships with a number of NFL teams, including the Seahawks, where his former coach Sherman is, and making his way up and starts to dig a little and finds that the laws are changing in certain states about your birth certificate. And finally, the law changes in Pennsylvania, where he was born and adopted, and he can get his birth certificate. Finds his birth certificate, finds his mom within a day and a half on Facebook, reaches out to her. She's never been married, never had kids. She's been looking for him for years. She's so thrilled to find him. She was a high school honor student who had a little whoopsie, got sent away to have the baby in private, which was really common in the 70s. Yeah. Didn't tell anyone but her parents and her cousins. So nobody even knew that she had the baby, not even the dad, who was already off to college. And so, spoiler alert.
So this is the moment.
This is the moment.
Well, would you rather not share it? Are you better? Do you feel more comfortable? It's up to you.
I'll just say this.
Because then there's another reason for people to pick up to buy the book.
I'll just say this.
Okay.
He asks who his dad is. It's not on the birth certificate. Does she know? She says, I never told him. He was off to college. I didn't want him to know. But your father's a man named, and it turns out it's someone that's been in his life that he knows. But neither of them knew it. Neither he nor the father knew that he was the son. And there is a lot to the book beyond that twist. There's this unraveling of nature versus nurture, emotional DNA, family systems, and messaging. You know, we're so certain of the things we get through our DNA and our blood that are irrefutable, but oftentimes we take the messages of our family as fact when they're subjective. You can choose not to pass along things in your family. You can choose to have things end with you, whether that's the trauma that Dylan grew up with. Unfortunately, his mom dated some unsavory dudes after his adoptive dad left, and he was around abuse and drugs. He chose, I want to be different for my kids. So it's trauma, but it's also simple messaging that a lot of people don't really get. But let's say you grew up and your family's finances were up and down, and when you were in a time of struggle, they would always say, it doesn't matter how hard you work, things don't work out. Or when you were in a time of struggle, they said, it always works out. We're struggling right now, but don't worry, it always works out. That's probably your feeling around finances for the rest of your life, in times of abundance and in times of trouble. And those are things that if you decide to change, you can be intentional about. And I don't dive too much into this, but neuroplasticity is essentially the ability to change our brains with intention using repeated thoughts. It's something like gratitude practice. If you find that you always look on the negative side, if at the end of the day you sit down and write down the 5 things you're grateful for from that day, you're training your brain to go looking for them, and eventually you start seeing those without trying. It works, I promise you. I talked to a neuroscientist about the triggers that I have about certain things. I started being intentional about how I would react in those moments, and now my brain goes there without me asking because I told it that's what I want. And neurons that fire together, wire together. Your brain says, oh, you're always doing this with this. I'm just going to start making it easy for you. I'll make some shortcuts. And there's a lot of that in this book of what is something that we inherit, that we can choose to keep and hang on to, and what are the things we always have, the blood and the DNA, and how is his family, the things that he got from his adoptive family, the things he got from his birth parents, how did they make him who he is, and what does he get to decide? And where does choice come into play when you're adopted? Because when you're adopted, you could say, anyone could have adopted me in any city. I could be named anything. I could be raised anywhere. I could just as easily be a Minnesotan as I could be a New Yorker. And that feeling of being at the whim of others can be really tough for people who come from adoption. And so Dylan was very adamant about choice being the reason that he found success and became who he is. And then there's a lot after the discovery of how the different families who are affected by this news handle it. What's the grace they bring to the situation, and how can we all learn from it? I wanted the book to be not just his story, but a lesson in just families and chosen families and the choices that we all make.
So I want to talk a little about the anger part, because what's part of what's fascinating to me about the premise is I'm assuming he couldn't really be angry at his real father because his real father did not know that this was his son, right? So but there are a lot of other complicated aspects to where he might have anger. So how big a part of the book is that, and how did he deal with that part of his emotion?
What's really interesting about this case is that it's kind of the opposite of a lot of other stories. Often what happens is the birth parents of a child are incapable of caring for it financially, maybe they're going through drug or addiction struggles, maybe they're just very young, whatever it is, oftentimes they put up the child in the hopes that the child will end up in a better situation. And that's what Dylan's birth mom did. She was 16. She wanted him to be adopted by a 2-parent family and go live an idyllic life like she had growing up. The twist here is, of course, that Dylan's adoptive mom, Adele, thinks that she's having this child and adopting this child in a partnership. By the time he's 2, her husband's gone, and now it's a single mom struggling to make ends meet, surrounded by a lot of poverty in Youngstown and crime and everything else. And he has a really tough childhood. So the anger is actually not Dylan toward his birth parents. He has always sort of accepted that they probably made this decision for a good reason. He feels doubted and unworthy because he was rejected by them, but he's not angry at them. What happens is his birth parents have some resentment towards his adoptive mom for the childhood that he had. They care about him. They're happy he turned out to be so successful and great. They don't want to be angry at his adoptive mom, but they are still angry at the circumstances that made up his youth. And so it's kind of a different situation than usual. And for all of them, there is this choice of what kind of grace they want to show others for the decisions they've made and how they want to move forward. What's best for both this man, formerly a boy, who's at the center of all this, and what's best for their family and the ways that they can try to make things work going forward, and get past the resentment that they might have for other people's choices.
Has he gotten past the resentment with his adopted mother on the basis of what he ended up being forced to live in?
Yeah, he never really resented her because he understood how hard she was trying and how much she worked. There's a part where he told me the story of they didn't have hot water because they didn't have electricity in one of their houses. And so when it was time for him to get ready for school, she would fill up Tupperware with boiling water from the stove and bring it up to the bathtub and run it and dump it and run it and dump it for him to have enough water to wash up with. He could see that she was working multiple jobs, that she was doing everything she could for him and his brother to have the education that she thought was most important, that she cared about setting them up to be the best men that they could be, even as she struggled to make her intentions always match her outcomes when it came to the men she brought home or the decisions she made about a variety of things. So he was never resentful of her. He mostly focused on the ways that she did her best. And I think that's one of the most fascinating things about Dylan is there are so many people who would be angry that they didn't have enough, that they grew up in poverty, that his teacher had to pay for him to get to go to prom, that he didn't have a car, that he didn't have all this. And instead, he always felt like there were these guardian angels around him that saved him from the worst of things that could happen to you or the decisions he wanted to make around things like dealing drugs and people wouldn't let him. He has this attitude of gratitude. And is it genetics? Is it DNA? Is it the attitude from his adoptive mom despite her situation? It's tough to say. And that's what this book leaves you with is some answers and a lot of questions about what is inherent in us and given to us, even things that we normally don't attribute to DNA, attitudes. And there's a study of epigenetics, which is essentially how the atmosphere and situation and environment around you impacts the expression of your genes. Your genes don't change, but if you have famine or trauma or are constantly in a state of fear, it affects your nervous system and your body. And the part of your DNA that's supposed to tell how tall you are or how fat you are or how anxious you are can be impacted by that environment. So as much as we think like, hey, here you are, your parents gave you what you are, so much of it is actually what's around you and surrounds you while you're growing up and developing. And that's really interesting, too, to think about what was he given through his blood and DNA, and then how was that impacted by the situations he was in?
Who were a couple of the guardian angels? Because usually in stories like these or anything close to it, that's what ends up happening. People might be relatives, might be friends, just end up playing extremely crucial roles.
One is his older brother, Damon, who is a really smart, naturally charismatic and confident kid who is so opposite to Dylan's shyness and self-doubt that he acts as a bit of a father figure and just a role model for him. There's the teacher, the science teacher, that not only makes sure he passes class, but also makes sure that and it's his track coach as well, make sure that he has the money to go to prom. There's Sherman Smith, the coach that he meets at Miami of Ohio, who recruits him and really sits him down and is one of the first figures he sees who got out of Youngstown and really made it good. Someone that came from his circumstances and ended up in the NFL and was very successful. He shows up to recruit him in a cherry apple red Mercedes that used to belong to Sir Mix-a-Lot. which is a great random fact in the story. And he's just mesmerized that, oh, this guy's from here and he's driving that car and doing this. And so what he finds is that the mentors he has in sport are very clearly people that if he follows what they say, the success comes to him. And the mentors he has in life struggle more. And so his path is not linear. He has setbacks. He makes mistakes. He dabbles in a little bit of criminal activity, and he struggles to make that linear path on the life side as easy for himself as he does on the sports side. And that's why often we do see that coaches and people in sport are the mentors that help kids out of these tough situations.
You obviously knew this story well before you got to the book part. This was, I'm sure the last stage. But what was the writing process like? And even talking with it, what was the process you used to put the thing together? The actual book.
Yeah, I mean, it was really nice that we'd done the first piece that was shorter and smaller, and I had earned their trust enough with that one, and they really liked.
Was it difficult to earn that trust in the front end? Or challenging?
I didn't think so, but what was interesting in writing the book is how much more came out that didn't come out the first time, which I attribute to the fact that they then had settled in and thought, oh, she's going to do a good job of this and respect our family and our story. And I think particularly being a white woman writing about a black family and the black experience, I wanted to make sure I not only really heard their lived experience and the perspectives that they brought, but also came without any judgment for decisions and choices being made. It was really important to me to make every character in the book multidimensional, even the ones that you might see as simply the bad dude who comes in and is abusive. Why did he turn out that way? Because ultimately, the book is about how who we are is the result of what came before us, around us, and to us. And even the people who display bad behavior, they got that way somehow, and it probably wasn't good. And so having empathy even for them and understanding that each of the people in the story are making decisions not out of an intention to be bad or wrong or evil or cruel, but because of what life has handed them. And so I needed to make sure they understood that that was the kind of empathy I was going to bring to telling everybody's story and that they could trust me with it. And then it was just lots of interviews and then a lot of research about the place and time. Because when I read books about people that are real people, I love when they intersect with the world. So Dylan was in class watching the day the Challenger exploded. Dylan and his brother were asking for Jordans the first time Air Jordans come out and being told we don't have the money for that, but practicing with their tongues out playing basketball outside, right? So it was a lot of research. And then I wanted Youngstown to essentially be a character because the impact that the time had of this really thriving city that instead fell into disarray with both the mafia and the collapse of the steel industry, how much of an impact that had on who he was and why he grew up the way he did. I think his life would be completely different if he grew up somewhere that was thriving and successful, where there was time and space to ask more questions about who am I and where did I come from. Instead, they're buried for the entirety of his life until his 40s.
Wow. We're unfortunately up against the clock here. I've saved the most important question for last because I know Vikings fans especially want to know, as a Chicago fan as you are, having grown up in that city, are the Bears finally going to figure it out? Are they on the verge of figuring it out?
The only answer I can say is yes, because otherwise I have to quit my fandom and stop watching. The only option is hope every season, to show up hopeful and then have my hopes dragged across the turf and spit on. At least, though, we got the right coach this time. We didn't think it'd be cute to go get someone from the CFL or someone that is 5 picks down. We know better than everyone else. No, we got the guy. I think we've got the quarterback or a quarterback. I don't think it's possible that every quarterback that's come to Chicago has been trash. I think it's all about a system, and the system has been bad.
You loved Jay Cutler, didn't you?
I was hopeful.
Yeah. Well.
And actually what's sad is Jay Cutler has every record in the book for our team. So as trash as he was still better than a lot of other people. And he could fling the ball.
He could. There's no question about that.
He had an arm on him, and he didn't always use it well, but that's better than I can say for some other people we've had.
We had, for years, Mike Tice was in this town as eventually head coach, and we established a relationship then, and occasionally we've had him on since he left town over the years. And for a while, he was coaching. He was an assistant. Was he coordinator or quarterback?
Offensive coordinator for Levy.
Yeah.
For Lovie Smith, that's right.
Yeah.
And I always ask him when I want to get him going, tell me about that time Jay was sitting on the bench, and you walked over and sat down next to him, and as soon as you sat down, he got up. Yeah. Tell me about that. How badly did you want to punch him?
You could probably ask a lot of people that question.
Yeah, that's it.
That was the vibe.
Yeah.
Also, Lovie Smith, you know what's cool is when your coach is getting you 10 wins, and you're like, no, we want more than that. And then every year since, you're getting 3 wins or 4 wins. Absolute trash. But I'm hopeful. I feel good about the pieces. I think ultimately it's play calling and offensive line. Caleb did not have a shot. My favorite thing in sports is how quick people are to say that like Taylor Swift is a distraction, but are downplaying having 2 different head coaches, 2 different offensive coordinators, 0 offensive line members that are protecting you in any sort of game plan. But let's definitely say it was Caleb's fault.
I appreciate you coming in. The name of the new book, again, well, relatively new, right? When did it come out?
A week ago.
Oh, it was a week ago.
Brand
okay,
new.
I thought it might have been a little before
Buy
that.
it, order it.
That's
There's an
new.
audio book. There's an ebook. There's a book.
Are you doing any book appearances here?
No, I should have thought about it. It's such a quick trip
This is
here.
a big bookstore town, man.
All right,
this is one of the few towns where Barnes & Noble actually makes money, I think.
As far as all your listeners know, I'm going to every bookstore in the Twin Cities and signing every copy. So rush out now.
You can get it at your bookstore. You can get it online, right? You can get ebook. Are you an ebook reader, or do you like picking up an actual book?
I like a hardcover book. But I do read the audiobook, and that was a fun thing, too. I got to put on my very serious NPR voice.
You read it? You actually did the... Oh, nice. Even better. Runs in the Family is the name of the new book. A lot of people are responding nicely via text who are looking forward to it.
I promise you it'll blow your mind. If you don't know the spoiler and the twist, you will be like, what? And you will be in tears, and you'll be like, is this a movie? And I'll be like, yes, soon. I
think we handled it responsibly. I like not giving it totally away for your sake.
I love people who are reading it and don't know it. Yeah. That's really fun, but I also know that the twist helps sell it because people are like, what?
That's a good point.
That's crazy.
That's a tough call.
So just know that it's crazy, and you'll think it's made up, and that we made sure that we had hard, cold facts to know it was true.
My producer reminds me, Justin, that there are tickets for the Aurora available for tonight, right?
Yeah, come hang out.
Hang out. You'll be there. You'll be signing autographs?
Yep, and I've got stickers from my show. I'm a Slice. Good Game with Sarah Spain stickers to hand out.
You got so many shows and so many. Do you ever worry about being overexposed?
Not overexposed, overtaxed.
Well, yeah, that's...
At some point, I do need to lie down.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a break every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
But then the deal is, I've got all these opportunities. Yeah. You don't want to blow it, right?
Yeah,
you want to take
people
advantage.
Will be like, sick of me and not calling.
Tell me. I understand.
Not for
completely.
you. You've been at this for like 100 years, right? No one's sick of you yet.
It's a matter of time. Thanks again for coming in. I enjoyed
Thanks
it.
Thanks for having me.
Sarah Spain for an hour. We've got Dr. Dan's Inbox yet to come. We've got Hockey Talk with Russo Radio at 5:30.
To the contest page, KFAN.com. Enter for your chance to win a 2-night stay at Breezy Point Resort for 4, including golf. All thanks to Custom One. KFAN.com, keyword contests.
As I mentioned, Stanley Cup Final will be discussed with Russo Radio. He is scheduled to join us at 5:30 this very afternoon. How's the inbox load? Decent? We're going to be okay?
I think it's solid.
Solid today?
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's solid.
Well, let's get her started.
All right, hang on. Got to get to the opens page.
Was that a fallness?
No, that was a meat sauce. Hang on.
Oh, meat sauce. Okay.
You do one? Hang on.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
It is that time again. You can always email Guardsy with... You can get ahead of the next inbox, emailing him, JG... at KFAN.com.
You said at the beginning of the show it might be a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
I'm going to start the inbox. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off.
Okay,
Let's just get bumpy right out of the gate.
That sounds good.
It was a little smooth the last hour with Sarah Spain in here. Thanks for providing best of material for July 4th, by the way. I appreciate that. That makes it very easy.
Yes.
Dear Dr. Dan, do you like parades? Who doesn't? Unless you're a radical lefty lunatic. The 250th anniversary of our Army just happens to coincide with what some people are saying is the birthday of our greatest president since Lincoln. The fake news is crying about the $45 million for this parade. Don't those morons know we only have to sell 9 Trump gold cards at $5 million apiece to cover that cost? Even Sleepy Joe could figure that out. D. Trump.
Well, it's funny that you start with that one. I don't know that we're going to have enough time to delve too deeply into it, but I hold in my hand, let me see if I can find it. This is a story from a website called military.com. I'll just read you a couple sentences. This had to do with a Trump speech in front of the military at Fort Bragg. Was that yesterday or the day before? I think it might have been even yesterday. What unfolded... No, it's Tuesday. Excuse me.
It was the day
Tuesday.
We had News Nation guy on.
Yeah, Tuesday's
Connell.
the day. What unfolded Tuesday at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, bore little resemblance to the customary visit from a president and defense secretary. There, the president unleashed a speech laced with partisan invective, goading jeers from a crowd of soldiers positioned behind his podium, blurring the long-standing and sacrosanct line between the military and partisan politics. Let me give you an example of, because the devil's always in the details here. Internal 82nd Airborne Division communications reviewed by military.com reveal a tightly orchestrated effort to curate the optics of Trump's recent visit, including hand-picking soldiers for the audience based on political leanings and physical appearance. The troops ultimately selected to be behind Trump and visible to the cameras were almost exclusively male. One unit-level message bluntly said, "No fat soldiers." Quote, "If soldiers have political views that are in opposition to the current administration and they don't want to be in the audience, then they need to speak with their leadership and get swapped out," another note said to troops, apparently said. Lastly, there's an anonymous quote from a commander at Fort Bragg. "This has been a bad week for the Army for anyone who cares about us being a neutral institution. This was shameful. I don't expect anything to come of it, but I hope maybe we can learn from it long term."
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, even though I bounced back and beat Buxton propelled us to a dub last night, I purposely waited until after our game started today before writing. I wanted to avoid the embarrassment of last week when I needed to update my hopeful message after we got destroyed by the A's later that same day. And boy, am I glad I waited today. I'm hanging out in the bullpen in the sixth, Dr. Dan. It's getting rough out here.
Yeah.
If we don't get this thing called due to rain, I think we might see another pitching appearance by Jay Bride or W. Castro. Is it time to trade for a starting pitcher, D. Festa?
Also well played, very good timing. Do we still have the dong gong on the on our button bar? The dong gong, because I think
Where's the gong?
I
feel like we moved that.
did we move it again,
Or it got lost.
Probably got lost because you don't date them properly, and then they just disappear into the ether. I believe if we had the dong gong, we were going to have to ring it 6 times today on behalf of the opposition, because I believe the Texas Rangers, who beat us 16-4 2 nights ago, edged us 16-3 earlier this afternoon, getaway day. And yes, the Rangers hit 6 home runs, a season high 6 home runs, and I believe I thought they had 3 early. Regardless, they ended up with 6 dongs. So it may be pretty much time to bring back the dong gong. Our pitching is unraveling, I think it is fair to say. Not helped along by the Pablo news, not helped because the giant pitcher, Bailey Ober, suddenly is in a rather worrying slump, I think.
I remember this now. We've lost the original gong, the one we used back in
we did?
2019, I think it was. Whenever Dongtober was. I guess that was 2019. Wow. Time flies. We lost that one, but then we recovered this one. And I won't prejudge it, but it doesn't sound the same.
Yeah, that's not
It's
as
a little
good.
tinny.
Yeah, it's a little tinny.
I remember
That's
it being tinny. So maybe tomorrow, as part of my homework, I'll try to find a meteor dong gong, and we'll bring it back.
4 2/3 innings for Ober, allowed 7 earned runs, walked a career high 6. His second pitch was he yielded a home run. He gave up another home run in the second, and after a balk, well, that's not a home run. Then Langford hit a 3-run dong just inside the left field foul pole. Carter homers in the 5th, makes it 7-1. And then Garcia caps a 6-run 6th with a 3-run dong off of somebody named Joey Wentz, who we just claimed off waivers from the Pittsburgh Pirates on Wednesday. And then we went the, I hate this route, but everybody, there's so many managers who do it, including Rocco, the old, well, just put an everyday player out there to pitch the ninth, because what's the difference at this point? And Jonah Bride gave up a 3-run dong in the ninth inning as well. So we lose 2 out of 3. We win the middle game last night, but our pitching issues seem to be maybe starting to rear their heads just a bit. Starting pitching issues.
Let's do one more, and then we can pause and remind people, JG at KFAN.com, if you'd like to get in on Dr. Dan's inbox.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Letters. Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, after reading about the overwhelming performances in 7-on-7 drills by J.J. McCarthy, do I have any choice but to award the V. Lombardi Trophy to the Vikings at some point during their upcoming training camp? As we all know, parades in Minnesota work better in August and February. The skill that has been on display against either air or guys just looking to get back home for one more barbecue before the season begins has been unprecedented. We are in awe of the ability of K. Adolfo-Mensah to draft the first player in NFL history to win a championship before taking an actual NFL snap. P.S. How good will he look as quarterback of the United States flag football team in 2028 in the Olympics in Los Angeles? R. Goodell.
Maybe we need to adopt the Harbaugh idea and start our own version of the accomplishment patches to put on practice jerseys. Problem is, now we don't have another minicamp. Are we done with minicamps, either optional or mandatory, until training camp now?
There's another set of OTAs next week.
Yeah.
But I keep hearing, everybody keeps saying, all the reporters basically say, but that one is even more meaningless than any of the meaningless practices that we've had the last 3 or 4 weeks.
That's hard to imagine.
Exactly.
But it won't stop the speculation.
People,
quarterback position.
they might be there, they might be doing some stuff, but usually the last OTA, they all go to like a water park or something. Speaking of collegiate atmosphere. So we're pretty much done to answer your question.
Let's get a break in, right? We got to get caught up. We'll do that. We got more inbox items to get to. We've got Top 5 at 5 at the top of the hour. We got some good Timberwolves team to discuss, and plenty of hockey at 5:30. Russo Radio files a live report from the Stanley Cup Finals. Part 2 of today's edition of Dr. Dan's Inbox. Top 5 at 5 yet to come. And good hockey conversation, some Wolves, some breaking A section, juicy material to discuss as well. Today might be the day we should go till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, but I'm sure you probably have some plans, so we'll stick to 6:30. We'll make it all work.
What's tonight? I'm trying to think.
Tonight is Thursday night.
We're pretty free. I mean, if we need to go to 8, we could.
Don't call my bluff. Let's stick to 6:30 after all.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, as you know, I'm a frequent podcaster of your show going back to my time at Minnesota. I enjoyed your columns in my first stint at Minnesota as well. I'm always up to speed with what's going on in your program. However, after a recent dismissal, I've been taking some time for a little me time, getting away, escaping, and I haven't been able to check in on what's happened on the show. I noticed you had my old buddy M. Lawrence on the program. I remember him from my New York days the first time around, 25 years ago. I don't have time to podcast. Could you just let me know what he had to say when it comes to the New York Knicks coaching search? How's that going, T. Thibodeau?
Well, it depends on who you want to listen to. There are some Knicks defenders, dare I say apologists, who say, what's the big deal? They're in no hurry. They know who's already available for sure, and they just want to explore and see if they might be able to steal somebody that people thought might not necessarily be in the mix. Dr. Dan finds it hard to accept that notion. Dr. Dan comes from the philosophy that when you fire a coach when the coach doesn't deserve to be fired, the only way you get out of it with a chance is because you've got a replacement plan literally for the next day, where you go, all right, calm down. Maybe now you folks will understand why we made, or maybe you won't understand, but you may be more willing to accept the approach we took. This really does look Villa 7-like, to go back to an old failed Gopher coaching searching hire. When I say failed, I don't mean Richard Pitino was a failure.
Didn't go as planned.
But it didn't go as planned. And to me, that's how this is coming off as well. I mean, every day now it's just running jokes about, I think since we were on the air, the Knicks contacted the Bulls about Billy Donovan. The list is so long that there are teams going, well, why didn't you want our coach? Maybe we don't have as good enough coach if you're not asking permission to talk to our guy. So I think it's probably good to be Tibbs right now. I mean, you never want to be fired. That can't be fun, especially after a year where you have really the best success a proud franchise has had in 25 years. But I think he's owed close to $30 million. He's going to land someplace. I don't know as a head coach right away, but he can be an assistant. How about bringing him back here to run our defense? How about bringing Tibbs back to run our defense as lead assistant coach?
What do you have against our guy, E. Turner?
Well, I like him. You're right. I like him too. But Tibbs is Tibbs, man.
He's a great defensive mind.
So he's, the beauty of Tibbs' position is the people who understand how bad this looks, they're fighting it for him every day in print and on the airwaves, so he doesn't even really have to squawk. He can say, I'm taking the high road and send out or pay for a full-page ad, as he did apparently, in the New York Times, basically to thank everybody but the person who hired and fired him and the owner of the New York Knicks.
It's time for Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Letters. Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, I've got a problem, and I'm coming to a great basketball mind for a solution. Let me read you some totals from my last series before the one I'm currently playing in. 14, 15, 4, 14, and 4. Let me read you the 3 of the 5. 14, 15, 14. Do you know what those totals represent, Dr. Dan?
No.
My free throw attempts each game. No surprise, we won 4 out of those 5 games and advanced to the NBA Finals. Now I'm going to give you my free throw totals for the series I'm currently in. 8, 12, and 6. Can you guess which game we won? Yes, the game with 12 free throw attempts. I guess my question to you, Dr. Dan, is I lived at the free throw line a series ago, and now I can't get there at all. Is it just Indiana's defense? Or is it just because Indiana is Indiana? S.G. Alexander.
I think, you must have. Did you write this yourself?
I should have led with this one.
Is this the one you?
I should have.
Are you sure you didn't write this and then are presenting it on behalf of somebody else?
I don't write them. I do like this one, though.
I figured that you probably would.
5 of 6 last night, 6 turnovers.
I would say I'm going to throw in the possibility that they're playing him better than we played him. That they are deeper than we are. That they are getting bench performances that we thought we were going to get on a regular basis from Naz Reid and didn't. And that has as much to do with the fact that that SGA had a terrible fourth quarter. I think he made 1 basket in the fourth quarter of that game, and it was, I believe, tied with 6 minutes to go. Dr. Dan will repeat his position on SGA. There is not a team in the National Basketball Association that would not kill to get him. Is it possible that from game to game, the approach of officials can change? Of course it can.
I think that's obvious.
Are there occasions where he might go too far? Yes, I agree totally. But we're going to have to acknowledge the possibility that the Oklahoma City Thunder were not unbeatable. And that some of that might have to do with, dare I say it, coaching, depth, approach, and, like I said, maybe a little better defensive performance as we laid out. In all of our losses to Oklahoma City, we not once held them under 50% shooting. Pacers have 2 victories in this series, and they've held the opposition to 40% and 46%.
I don't have a response. We don't have enough time.
No, we don't. We're never going to agree on that. We'll just have to. We disagree on so much. We're allowed to disagree on this.
I like that somebody wrote in, though, and it's not Jay Gard, although it could have been.
Yeah, very easily.
I would have tweaked a couple of other things.
Let's be honest. he knew if he wrote it, you were going to read it. Let's just put it that way. There wasn't going to be like, oh, we had too many, and that's going to be on the cutting room floor.
That one's going to get in there. Yeah, you're right. Let's do a few walk-offs here.
For Dr. Dan's Inbox.
Letters. Oh, we get letters. We get your letters every day.
Dear Dr. Dan, we hear your producer used to coach basketball, but is currently under contract to your afternoon show. Any chance we could talk to him about our head coaching job? That from the NY Knicks.
That's up to you. I mean, you got 9 jobs
Do
already.
I want to coach the Knicks?
No, you probably don't.
Yeah.
The problem, the upside is if you actually win a title, obviously, they'll name streets after you. They might name boroughs after you, for God's sake. On the other hand, if you don't, then you're stuck with what still is a pretty dysfunctional owner. And you're kind of stuck in also the knowledge that whenever you lose like 2 games in a row, people are going to want to fire you a lot faster than pretty much any other market in America.
Dear Dr. Dan, I was actually the source for the accomplishment patches being used in Los Angeles. I bought them expecting to dole them out to on-air staff here, but after a year of 0 accomplishments, I decided to sell them. That from C. Abbott. Dear Dr. Dan, can you remind me what time for Friday? L.E. Neal III. Dear Dr. Dan, shut up about me. You're a horrible person and a loser. That, again, from D. Trump responding. And the last one, Dear Dr. Dan, I'm back, baby. P. Hoos.
Another good callback.
The Hoos.
Top 5 includes?
The U.S. Open, the Twins, and we got a Stanley Cup Finals game tonight. We'll talk a little bit about the NBA Finals, too.
Stay tuned.